Trinidad Times. Start over. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Tom Murphy, and this is Trinidad Now on Trinidad Times Television. With me today is lifelong resident, probably, Karen Griego of Trinidad, who's running for City Council.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tom.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
I appreciate this opportunity.
Well, as we know, Meet the Candidates is coming up, and that's a good forum, but I want to go into more depth. I really want people to know a lot more about the candidates so that we have the best options available to choose. And by doing this extensive interviews, I think it will help. I'd gone through the questions with you before, Karen, and we're going to go through those now. And as I explained to other candidates, I want people watching to know, not everybody's an incumbent. In fact, Anthony, only the mayor, Mr. Bonato, and Mr. Matei are incumbents. So there's some things that you may not know, but I'm going to ask you so that people realize that I'm being fair to each candidate. Because otherwise I could get beat up over this by saying, well, you asked one person this and not the other person. So it's okay if you don't have all the answers, but you're going to have enough that people will understand. So let's talk about you personally. Your personal background. Where were you born? Where have you lived? Where were you educated? Your spouse. Name and number of children, grandchildren.
Well, I am fourth generation Trinidadian. I was lucky enough to meet both sides of my great-grandparents, and they all were coal miners. They immigrated to this community as coal miners from Italy. I've lived here all of my life with the exception of 1 year. I lived in Louisiana when my dad was deployed during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh.
And that was the reason I even mentioned that was interesting, because that was in the height of segregation, the race riots down there. I lived through that. It was a profound experience for me personally.
Can I ask a quick question? Was your father in the military here,
yes.
or the National Guard?
Yes, my father was career military.
Oh, okay.
He was a veteran of World War II, and then the rest of his life he served in the Colorado National Guard.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to...
not a problem. I'm happy to give you that information.
Okay.
I graduated Trinidad High School class of 1967.
Uh-huh.
Went to Trinidad State for 2 years. My husband and I, Edward, are life partners for 48 years and business partners for 42 years. We have 2 children. My older daughter, Jean Griego, lives in Denver. She's a vice principal of Smoky Hill High School in Denver. My younger daughter, Kathleen, has been our business partner for, I'd say, 22 years, because we first went into partnership with Wendy's International, our restaurant that we owned. We sold that in 2015, and then when we did that, we brought Kathleen in as a partner in the insurance agency, Griego Insurance.
Mm-hmm.
We've been doing business on Commercial Street for 42 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
a long time.
Very long time. I hate to give you this information.
It is what it is, though.
I graduated, people aren't going to know how old I am.
Right.
Not a big deal.
No, it's not. It's not. So, let me make sure my shots here. Sorry. Got to do 2 things at once here.
I understand.
Your past public involvement, Karen, elected, appointed, voluntary, or other positions. Tell me about those.
I started out doing with boards and commissions when the first tourism board was formed in Trinidad in the 90s. I was on that original board. And then that kind of evolved. I went from there, and I think the reason that it took me so long to get involved is because people didn't know who I was at that point, because I just worked at the agency.
Right.
But we were known in the community after Wendy's started going, and then from that point on, because I was involved in a tourism-related industry, then that's how I got on the tourism board. From there then, Governor Romer appointed me to the Small Business Council for the state of Colorado, and I served there for 4 years. And then after that stint, Governor Owens appointed me to the Judicial Nominating Committee for this district, and I served on that position, in that position for 5 years.
Okay, I wonder if Paula, my wife, took your place because she was appointed last year.
No, I've been off for a couple of
Oh,
years.
for a while,
I've been
okay.
off a couple of years.
Okay,
Great experiences.
right.
And then on the local level, I've been on the board of the Trinidad Chamber of Commerce. I've been past president of Noah's Ark Animal Welfare Association, and I also served under 2 district attorneys on the Victims Compensation Board here in Trinidad. Currently, there's only 2 positions I'm holding right now. I am the treasurer of the Trinidadio Blues Fest, and I am also an advisor to TSJC for their business school.
Okay, a couple things let's follow up on Noah's Ark and tourism. Noah's Ark is near and dear to your heart. I know that.
Absolutely.
And I'm one of the people that probably lives closer to Noah's than anything. And I know when you guys were talking about building it or talking about the noise, I can tell you there's not.
Oh, I know.
But whatever you do, sometimes people are going to be opposed.
I was amazed because I had to speak in front of council several times trying to build on Moores Canyon Road. I was involved with that. And then when the city agreed to let us use Hughes lumber for that,
Right.
then we had to go back toward to city council and get approval for that.
Right. Right.
So I was shocked. I called myself naive because I thought everybody was an animal lover,
Right.
and they're not.
Right. I am. I've had pets most of my life.
I have too, but it's at varying degrees of animal loving.
Yeah,
That's
yes.
the best way to put it.
Yes, but I almost thought about getting up and speaking. It's like I live closer than anyone that I can think of, and it's like occasionally in the morning you hear when they go in to feed the dogs, they bark for a little while, but smell and other than that, it's nothing.
It's a necessity. For quality of life in any community, animal
Right.
welfare is a necessity, period.
Right.
And I'm so happy that City Council, there's a lot of people that are not happy with that money given to Noah's for the shelter, but it's a contract, it's a long history, and people need to understand that history, and people need to know it's not only for animal welfare, it's for people welfare as well.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. It's not just for us. It's
No.
it's for the animals. But in addition, if the animals are out there, multiplying, then it is an issue to us,
It
and
is
it's
an
a health issue.
Absolutely.
So it's I know it's been an issue in Pueblo and Springs and Denver, and there's always a scarcity of money, but there's a lot of people with heart that have made up a big difference, and you're one of them. So
you.
as
Thank
an
you so
animal lover, it breaks your heart at times to see some things happening.
Well, I'll tell you, the staff at Noah's is incredible.
Right.
Hats off to those people because that is not a job that most people want, and they do the best job they possibly can.
Yeah. Karen, so, I'm at Council filming and stuff. I'm a little confused. So it was going to go up Santa Fe Trail Drive, and
Right.
that didn't happen. Now it was at Hughes Lumber. But you're not going to Hughes Lumber either, are you? Now you're
No.
going to go out to the old where the
Correct.
swimming pool
And
is?
see, my tenure as president of the board, I left the board May of 2017. So
Oh.
I have no knowledge of what happened between the city and Noah's for the new building.
Okay.
But we had to go in front of city council, first of all, to get the zoning done for the Moores Canyon road property. There's a nice parcel of land that Noah's owns up there,
Right.
but it had to be rezoned. It was donated to us.
So do you still have the property up there?
Still have the property, as far as I know, we do.
Oh, okay. Oh, because you're off the board. Okay.
Right.
One other thing, I remember that it took, I think, 3 times to get the tourism passed. I'm pretty sure, maybe I'm
was hard.
confusing. It was 3 times. It was also 3 times in order to get the jail passed that
Right.
we built. But don't you think, and this is a follow-up question, don't you think though that it has been very beneficial that tax to this community?
Absolutely. You wouldn't see a trolley going up and down Main and Commercial and through town if it wasn't for the tourism board. And I think Cy Michaels has a lot to do with that 3rd time's the charm
Right.
vote because she was persistent. I still make fun of her because she was practically screaming to tell people to vote. It's not going to affect you, not unless you rent a hotel room.
Right.
So it Trinidad would be light years further back in history if we weren't on a tourism tax.
Well, the money's got to come from somewhere, and
Absolutely.
I mean, I know the answer to that, but it's like, since you were one of the original board members, I thought I would put that out there. But I know it's been very beneficial for the
Oh,
community.
it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
It takes money to make things operate,
Well,
and
Tom, you know, as a business person, any successful business you have to advertise.
yeah,
And if you don't spend money to advertise, you're not going to have business.
Yeah.
Same thing with the city of Trinidad.
Yeah.
We have to advertise.
and we have a lot to offer, I think.
Absolutely.
So we just need to put it out there. So, trying to think, the Noah's Ark, the tourism, and you had mentioned, chamber. You're also on the chamber too.
I was.
Okay.
I was.
But so you help facilitate some activity there too, right?
Yes, we did. We started I kind of put both hats on with the tourism. Well, I think that was before, but we integrated the trolley, and the chamber started Christmas tours, where they go see the houses at Christmas. And it was, my tenure on chamber ended before I started with the tourism board. But the chamber has always been proactive business.
And isn't it one of the oldest chambers in
It is.
in Colorado?
One of the oldest. And thank God, you talk about natural resources in Trinidad.
Right.
The one natural resource that hardly anybody ever talks about are the people here that are dedicated to so many groups like Linda Barron
Right.
and those people with a chamber. I mean, I've heard of different groups doing different causes within the community, and I said, this is for that reason alone, this place is a beautiful place to live.
Yes, it is. I've lived in different places, and I came to visit, and I'm still here. What in particular I love is the clean air, the clean water, and one time I went to the store, and Paula said, "You were gone 9 minutes." I lived in Denver briefly and in Dallas for a while, and it's like I know what it is to have to get out and go get the basic supplies, and it's nice what we have.
Right.
But we'll keep moving on. Otherwise, we'll chat about this stuff all day long.
Forever.
But Karen, what is your reason for running for city council?
Well, I don't know. I decided to run for council a week after the petitions came out, so I was a week late picking up my petition. But it was the week of my high school class reunion, and I was on my way to Pueblo to see a classmate of mine that it was terminally ill. And for some reason, those events, I decided, you know what, Karen, instead of sitting down and praying that good people run for city council, get off your duff and do it yourself. You're capable of doing this, and I'm not involved with Noah's Ark any longer. That took a huge amount of my time, and it's just the right time. I'm trying to work myself out of working as many hours as I do at Griego Insurance, and it just felt right for me.
Mm-hmm.
I asked my husband, because not only is he I know what city council does to a family, and I know what city council does to a business.
Yeah.
And being my business partner, I asked him, this is what I want to do. What do you think? And he said, go for it. And he's 100% behind me.
Well, he was on council too, wasn't he?
He was on city council for 8 years, and so I'm not going into this naive like I was
Right.
with Noah's Ark. I know what I'm going to be faced. I know my business is going to be hurting at some
Right.
point.
Right. That's the price that we pay. But
Absolutely, but I think
but
it's
from
worth it.
from the top on down in our country, we need people to get involved, and there is a price, but it's worth it too.
It absolutely is. The way I look at it too, Tom, and this, to some people this sounds corny, but it's absolutely the way I feel. This community, who else could open a business? Where else could you open a business with $500 cash
Right.
and raise 2 children, send them to college, and have a very good business? Trinidad's been very good to Ed and I and our children. And this is a way for me to give back to the community. You know, somebody asked me when I asked them to sign my petition, somebody said, well, who are you mad at? Why are you running for city council? I said, I'm not mad at anybody. You know,
Right.
if somebody angers me, they'll know.
Right.
You know, I said, I'm not running out of anger. I'm running out of commitment to this community.
Right. Well, you talked earlier about your age, but my own personal insight is, when I was younger, I had a lot of energy and stuff. I like where I'm at now as far as experience. So you're at the same, place. It's like there's a lot to be said for just good old-fashioned experience and being on this world for a while.
Good old-fashioned experience. I'll tell you what, that job that I have is the best basic training for city council that anybody could ever have, because I am the great compromiser. If you look at what I do, I'm the middleman between an insurance company and an individual. And I'm always trying to get the two connected, get something positive out of the relationship between those two people. And that is a tough job.
Well, and you're absolutely right. Even the charter says that you're there to represent all the people.
Absolutely.
And so, but you also have to represent the city, and sometimes the people in the city are in conflict. So yeah, absolutely.
After I decided to run, I went to my best friend in Trinidad, and I told her, I'm telling you now, I apologize if I make a decision, if I'm on council that upsets you.
Right.
But those are decisions that have to be made.
Right. They do. Interesting. Okay, the elephant in the room, which has been in the room for a few years for a lot of people, is marijuana. What is your stance on marijuana?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm right there in the thick of it on Commercial Street. We're on the 300 block of Commercial Street. They're on, a chunk of them are on the 400 block, and there's a chunk over on coming off of the interstate.
Right.
I'll tell you what, I have no problems with the marijuana industry. I have seen people walk up and down Commercial Street. Families, we're not talking young kids looking for pot shops, but families going up and down Commercial Street just to see what's going on down there. Tom, that's the first time that's happened in my recent memory.
Right.
You know, there are good business people. If you would, I know that a lot of the pot shops give a lot of donations to the nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's one big, huge basic advantage for having them. Another one is just look what the city distributed a couple of weeks ago because of pot sales tax.
Right.
The city doesn't have money to give money to Noah's Ark to build a shelter. We wouldn't have had that money for capital improvements, you know. And there's been a lot, I think that's wonderful. And, you know, people keep saying, well, you know, marijuana is not going to be here forever. But I believe that because we're one of the first communities to embrace marijuana, I think we're at an advantage, because I believe there's so many beneficial uses for marijuana that we haven't even tapped into yet. You know, I had a friend of mine who was a co-worker that had terminal breast cancer. If it wasn't for edible marijuana, that woman would have died 3 years before she did, because she could not eat after her chemotherapy treatments. And she started doing the edible marijuana, and it made a quality of life issue for that woman that is, I saw it for myself. And I think, you know, that's the next step. I think it's the next step
Right.
in the marijuana industry.
Right.
If we can get some people to come in here, some businesses, to do labs and figure out there's other things to do. The medicinal side of marijuana will far exceed the recreational use, I believe.
Let me interject this here. My mother's going to be 90 here in a few months, and she has macular. She lost most of the vision in one eye, and she probably beat me for talking about her. But in her good eye, she's had a cataract, which leaked recently, and then she has macular. But both of those things were fixed, and the eye doctor said, I can't explain why your vision went from 20/200, 20/250 to 20/30, 20/40. Well, she's been using it for her eyes and her back pain. And it's, my mom's like, well, and she told him, and he's like, there must be something to it. So, and at that age to lose your vision it makes people give up.
It's life altering.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I saw it for myself with my friend. I knew this was going to be a hot button issue because there's a lot of people that are vehemently opposed to it. So I went and did some research on pot myself. The first written history of pot in humankind history is from the year almost 3000 BC. And the reason that pot has such the stigma that it has is because Nixon grouped it with LSD and heroin in the 1970s and listed it as a controlled substance. It was never supposed to be a controlled substance.
Right. And it's been used by the Indians and others and rituals and everything else.
I'm pretty out there as far as the talking to people within my business, and then I'm just generally a very outgoing person, but I wish I had $1 for every time an old woman would come up to me. I use pot cream, but don't tell anybody. It's like, thank God you're using it because
Yes.
it's better than taking a pain pill.
It is. It is. Another thing, and this is more of a follow-up question, but you're talking about downtown and some of the other segments. I've given a big shout out to Jay Shimino. I mean, look what's happening downtown in your neighborhood.
Oh,
Isn't that awesome?
do I look excited? I mean, for that, I kept telling people for years, and there was not a thing anybody could do about it. But they talk about the corazon, the corazon de
The heart of Trinidad.
Heart of Trinidad. And I told one downtown group one day, I said, the main artery going into the corazon is dying, and that's Commercial Street.
Right.
And kudos to Mr. Cimino for putting all that money in there. And kudos for him not worrying about the marijuana industry.
Right.
And it brings me to one other thing I forgot to tell you about the
Okay.
marijuana industry. For years, I've heard people say, this town has to have an industry that employs young people. All our young people are leaving town because there's no place to employ them. Well, the marijuana industry, you go into any pot shop, and there's biggest percentage of people working in there are millennials or ex-gens, or they're young and they're qualified. I think it's just a lack of communication and a lack of understanding about the marijuana industry.
Right. And it's the young people working there, but when you talk to some of the people, the customers are 60, 70, 80 years old. Driving very nice cars.
Exactly. And that's a majority of the customers. I watch it.
Right.
And it's not because I was knowing that I was running for city council. I just try to keep a pulse on what's going on in Trinidad, because it affects all of us.
Right.
But it's funny because I see all these people going in there and they're all clean cut. And another thing that makes me laugh about marijuana. Well, I was in high school in the 60s. And if you wanted a joint in the 60s, all you had to do is ask the right person, and it was available.
Right.
Anybody that thinks marijuana wasn't in this community before the legalization of it is sadly mistaken.
And we still have hard drug issues, but that's a different issue.
That's a different issue.
I did a story for a paper 10 years ago on homeless people, and I said, I don't understand, how do you afford it? Because it wasn't marijuana that they were after, it was the harder drugs. And they said, it's cheap here. I mean, and I forgot what the price they were telling me. So you go mow a lawn, get $40, and that will get you what you need. They're like, oh yeah. So it's complex. So the other ones, but the marijuana, I'm excited to see what happens medically. It's already happening, but I think we've just opened the door.
Oh, I have too.
So
I know a young lady that's got a child with autism, and she's tried the oils, and it's helped him as well.
Yeah, that would be near and dear to any parent's heart, of not making their child suffer.
Absolutely. It kind of reminds me what Trinidad is going through now. It kind of reminds me. Now, I wasn't alive in the 20s during Prohibition,
Right.
but it's almost like the same hysteria now with marijuana that was with alcohol.
Right.
People abuse everything.
Right.
Used correctly, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Another big issue in town is the panhandlers and homeless. This is a tough question. What do you think we should do about that?
There's nothing you can do about that.
Right.
I was in Europe this summer, and if you think our panhandlers are bad, go to Venice and see what those panhandlers are like. They're very aggressive. It's a human right issue, Tom.
Right.
Those people have a right to be there. Do they question our consciences about the issue? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel bad every time I pass one, especially one with a dog, because I say, let me take the dog. You guys do your own thing, let me take the dog. But,
Right.
you know, it makes us think, you know, here I am in a nice car, and here's that gentleman here panhandling. We had panhandling up at Wendy's 15 years ago.
Right.
You know, you've got to understand that our biggest blessing and our biggest curse is Interstate 25. You know how many people get off that interstate on a daily basis? It's the good and the bad. You call them vagrants. I call them transients. You know, as long as they're on that sidewalk and they're obeying the laws of the city of Trinidad, there's nothing we can do about it. And I walk in Chimino Park during lunch, most days during the lunch hour. And you could see the immediate drop. You'll see the immediate drop at all the hot corners in town where the vagrants are at. The day after Labor Day, it cut down, I'd say 70%. Now you'll see them only on the weekends because they travel on the weekends. And I think as long as it's not a safety issue, I don't believe there's anything we can do about it. You know, everybody has questions about it, but I don't know what we could do unless we start infringing on their right to be there.
Right.
Then you open a big can of worms, because then you're not allowing them to do their right. They have a right to be there. It's a public sidewalk.
Yeah, and I just know from other candidates too, it's a word that have traveled internationally. It's a worldwide problem. It's not just here.
Absolutely.
But I ask it because I know some people are pounding the table and said, solve this problem. And it's like, good luck, because there's not an easy answer.
I love numbers. I majored in accounting in college, but it's a percentage. You increase the traffic on Interstate 25, and we all know what our tourism traffic was this year. This summer it was huge. I could tell, even on Commercial Street. You increase the number of people traveling the interstate, you're going to get an increased number of transients. No way around it.
I just remember Howard Lackey really did some research and found out these people got a good thing going. And they're not all homeless. Some of them have, he spoke at city council. It's like, wow, they've got a system going. They've got trailer homes. Some of them have nice mobile homes. And you're like, maybe I made a wrong career choice.
That's possible.
Tax-free.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle choice for them.
Yeah.
And the only way you get involved in their lifestyle choice is to give them money.
Right.
And you have that option.
Yeah. And I don't. There are times you look at them and you think, maybe this one's okay, but the probability is maybe, as one candidate said, maybe 1 in 5 really need a hand up.
Absolutely.
Instead of a handout. So, last question in this segment. Check my tape over here. How much time, if you're elected, will you spend on city council, on city council business?
Well, that was a real reason why I took so long to decide to run, is because I understand. I know with technology, the amount of paperwork is cut down, and I know that the city itself has been trying to cut down on the number of meetings. But I have as much time during my day. I'm not as active in the agency. I have days during the week that I can work on city government, and also at night I'm available at night.
Okay. Well, Karen, this is the first segment. I'm going to take us out, and then we'll come back with our second segment.
Okay.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tom Murphy, and this is Trinidad Now on Trinidad Times Television. We'll be right back. See, pretty easy.
Yeah.